Good morning, dear listeners. I'm glad that you're interested in machine learning and distributed systems, especially the issues of optimizing hyperparameters and building ensembles of machine learning models and so on. For the last 6 years, I've studied the source code of different distributed machine learning projects such as Mahout, Horowitz, MLlib, and Spark, and so on. And for the last 3 years, I've participated in Apache Ignite open source project creating a distributed machine learning module. And I made 100 commits in Apache Ignite repository for the last 3 years, mainly in Apache Ignite ML model, but not only. And now I work at JetBrains company, but I continue to support and develop a distributed machine learning library as a part of Apache Ignite. I need to say a few words. What is this presentation about? It's not an introduction in Ignite ML module. Please watch the next video. I will share on the next screen from ApacheCon from the previous year. But in this presentation, I will focus mainly on the benefits of Apache Ignite ML or the across distributed ML framework like Apache Spark ML. I mean two main features, hyperparameter optimization and ensemble models. This is a presentation that covers basic functionality of Ignite ML, but we will go deeply today. Let's take a look at a machine learning problem from mathematical point of view. It will be a few pieces of math, sorry for that, but I like that. ML task shortly could be described as a search of best set of parameters for function f, and we have an assumption about f function type. There is w is a set of unknown parameters, x inputs and y outputs. Let's move on to the problem of finding the best hyperparameters in mathematical form. It will be hard, but it's only just one mathematical slide here. This is our HPO hyperparameter optimization task in mathematical description. It could be formulated as a bilevel or two-level optimization problem. There, the optimal parameters on the training set depend on hyperparameters. And later, I will give some definitions how to differ model parameters from hyperparameters. A bilevel optimization problem consists of two subproblems called the upper level and low level problems. There, the upper level and lower level problems the upper level problem could be solved subject to the optimal solution of low level problem, like presented on this slide. I will explain two equations here. They are bound to each other, lambda and w, hyperparameters and parameters respectively. Lambda with asterisks, this is optimal hyperparameters. And we want to find the optimal hyperparameters with subjection on the best response of the parameters to the fixed hyperparameters passed to the low level. LZ and LT, this is a training loss and validation loss respectively too. Okay, bilevel programs were first studied in economics a few decades ago. Like maybe somebody familiar with model of leader follower in firm analysis from von Stackelberg game. And machine learning, it's very popular too. Many problems can be formulated this way as bilevel programs. For example, HPO Task, which presented in this presentation, and GIAN training presented by Goodfellow and his works, is very popular topic too, meta learning, and of course the search of optimal neural network architecture too. This is the same problem which could be solved the same way, and if you have an experience in solution of one of them, you could easily move to another. Okay, even the search space for the optimal values of two hyperparameters can be quite complex. Like here, this search requires the use of special mathematical methods from optimization theory. Each three-dimensional point in this image corresponds to the values of two hyperparameters along the x and y axis and the value of the metric or loss function along z x. For training, the fixed values of hyperparameters. But machine learning doesn't end with finding model parameters. Let's take a look at the machine learning process or pipeline from start to finish. The first of all, we have a distributed pipeline which starts from the data loading, from the raw data, and this raw data could be, for example, in Ignite caches or in Ignite SQL. And after that, raw data are transformed into the vector format, special mathematical format in memory via intermediate data handling known as pre-processing, where vector contains only doubles, not any raw data like strings or floats or integers, only doubles, because machine learning models like only double values or maybe floats are to transform them, to predict on them, to build the model on them, and etc. And doesn't contain, for example, missed values or strings. And after that, we train the model on the vector data. Sometimes we need to repeat our training process again and again to find the best set of parameters. And these specific parameters are known as hyperparameters. The quality of the built model could be evaluated before deploying in the production environment via metric calculation. There are many different metrics for binary classification tasks, for regression, for clustering, for multi-classification tasks, and so on. All these steps are distributed in Ignite ML library, and a significant part of calculation are parallelized for the highest cluster resource utilization. For example, we could train a few models in parallel during cross-validation. This is a feature of Ignite ML 2. It's time to define what is the hyperparameter correctly. Data scientists train models by running training algorithms. There are many different ways to build, for example, linear regression model or a decision tree model. And each training algorithm has several tunable settings, the values of which can be changed before a training starts. And every value can affect the final model. Let's keep in mind that such settings are known as hyperparameters, and that the task of a value search for optimal hyperparameters is known as HPO. HPO task. Maybe later we'll use this term into this presentation, like hyperparameter optimization problem. Let's start from the basic definition. What is and what is not a hyperparameter? Newbies in ML are often confused about the model parameters and hyperparameters of training algorithm. Model parameters are learned during training. You define it during training as a result of training, and this is what model is. But the hyperparameter on the opposite side, on the contrary, must be set by a data scientist manually or by AutoML before training, or via different approaches, which part of them will be discussed later. A good example of model parameters is a slope and intercept in a linear regression, or a weight tensor in the convolutional layer in neural network. And we are trying to find the best parameters during one training. On the opposite side, the initial learning rate, for example, in SGD, stochastic gradient descent optimization algorithm, or a number of trees in random forest algorithm widely used to, should be defined before training. All these examples are hyperparameter. If you define something before training, and this is known at the start of training, this is a hyperparameter. If you want to learn something, this is a model parameter. A good I guess we can move on to the next slide, and let's list all the currently available Ignite ML training algorithms and the algorithms tunable hyperparameters. Each of supported ML algorithm has between 3 or 10 in this range a number of hyperparameters. Only 2 or 3 of algorithms has only 0 of hyperparameters. You should understand that we have a lot of different degrees of freedom in our model building here. And currently, the framework contains enough implementation of classical machine learning algorithms and data preprocessing methods to be comparable with Apache Spark ML Lib. For example, the scikit-learn or widely known Python ML library. And we have logistic regression, SVM, KNN, approximate nearest neighborhood, decision trees, random forest, kind of ensemble method at the top of decision trees, and etc. And of course, we have a lot of regression algorithm. Sorry for misprint on this slide. Regression algorithms, we should read the header. And if you prefer to predict values instead of class labels, we have KNN regression, linear regression with different trainers. We could build the linear regression via different ways: decision tree regression, random forest, and gradient boosted tree regression, and so on. And each of them, as I said, has an average 5 hyperparameters which could be set up before the training. And of course, we have basic neural networks. They are supported too, and you could model any function or distribution due to the power of nonlinearity in activation functions. We support different nonlinear activation functions too. And for example, let's take a look at the neural networks. The distributed multilayer perceptron has many hyperparameters like you could build a lot of different dense layers one by one. They could have different activations functions, and this is a kind of hyperparameters. You could switch between different loss functions, how to calculate how your model is good. Max iterations, local iterations, batch size, seed, and then other settings for internally used SGD, stochastic gradient descent, optimizer, and so on. There are a lot of them. It's about the 10 for their neural network building, for example. We can go forward to the training models. It's very similar to training models like in scikit-learn, and we use Ignite caches to extract the in-memory data to build the partition-based data sets, which is much more effective for vector and matrix operations than Ignite in-memory caches and SQL tables, because we could operate on the whole vectors together, which are located in memory together. And these data sets are ML specific. You couldn't reuse them outside the ML module, and it creates internally. You have no special access like in pandas, but you should know and keep in mind this term like partition-based data set. This internal, specifically ML module structure which created in the memory. When you will debug ML algorithm, you will face that. And first of all, let's fill the cache with the data, for example, reading from the CSV file or copying from database, etc. And after that, label it vectors with labels of class, for example, from raw data in caches. After that, we define the trainer decision trees, for like in this slide, with 5 in constructor, like it's kind of hyperparameter here. This is a max deep of tree, which could be built during the training. And you could choose different values for these hyperparameters. And for example, run the training with different values like 4, like 5, like, I don't know, 10, and choose the best model here. You could estimate your model with evaluation metrics, but we will discuss it in the next slides. Of course, we should combine Ignite, instance, cache, and vectorizer, which create vectors together to train the model in the fit method. And after that, we could estimate accuracy, for example, or you could calculate another metric. We have a lot of them on the Ignite ML. I think all popular metrics are presented here. you could calculate accuracy to evaluate your model and decide how is good your hyperparameters which were injected to the trainer in this example. In the research phase of any machine learning project, hyperparameter tuning can be done manually. I agree with that thesis, but however, when you want to take the project to the next level in the production, the real production, it's highly effective to automate this process. Let's discuss in the next chapters the basic techniques that could help to estimate the model quality. For example, to calculate accuracy. First of all, you should be able to calculate different metrics, and we support a lot of them, as I said. Here you could find only classification metrics, but regression metrics are supported too, and I think in the next release the different metrics for evaluation of clustering algorithms will be delivered too. So it's not a good practice to learn and validate the model parameters on the same data. And I want to share yet one tip how to avoid the overfitting. This is specific effect, then your model overfits is bad in many cases. And the most efficient solution here is to save and use part of the training data as a test set. And this technique, like a test train splitting, is supported in Apache Ignite ML too, but it's not the real splitting of the dataset or caches. This is a special filter which filters the data that is stored in a cache into two parts. It's like a logical predicate. It's performed according to particular conditions. You could define them or use pre-built. In reality, no data transfer or network shuffle during this splitting. It's only logical filter which will be lazy evaluated during the evaluation phase or training phase, etc. And all fit methods have a parameter, special parameter for this filter, and this parameter passes a filter condition to each cache, lower. The user, like on this slide, can use to call the method from the train test splitter. He could call get train filter, or he could call get test filter and pass it to, for example, to the cache to calculate manually different metrics, or pass to the evaluate method to evaluator, or to calculate different, for example, accuracy, like on this slide, on their test data set, which will not be created, as I said. It will be only filter. A few rows will be filtered, and only data from them will participate in calculation of metric. This is very important to know for performance reasons. Okay, this is very ancient technique, but we have a few modern for that. Test train splitting really helps to avoid overfitting. But however, by partitioning the available data and excluding one or more subsets of the data from the training set, we significantly reduce the number of samples that are used to learn the model parameters. We could very easily to run not on the whole data set a few trainings, and this technique is known as cross-validation. And the cross-validation approach solves this problem, and the cross-validation object is the heart of hyperparameter tuning. Let's discuss how Apache Ignite ML implements k-fold cross-validation. First of all, the training set is split into multiple or sub datasets. The k parameter defines the number of sub datasets. Ignite ML uses k minus one of the faults as training data and trains the model. And the resulting model is validated on the data that was not used for training at all. And of course, you could get a k results, and they could be averaged to produce a single estimation, or you could I don't know, calculate the max from these k results, or you could pass them to the user, and he could decide what he will do with them. it's your choice. You have a different approaches supported in our cross-validation. And cross-validation objects support the parameterization of trainer. What trainer should be validated, what metrics are to be calculated for the model, what the number of faults that the training data should be split into. And of course, cross-validation could work with our splitting. For example, you want to split, like on this slide, your initial data set on the training set and use cross-validation only on that, and keep the test set for the final validation. This is very important technique. This is a very modern approach to tune your hyperparameters to validate your final best hyperparameters on the test set to estimate your model. As I said, and this cross-validation object has a special method like tune hyperparameters. This is our magic method, which could help you later. Okay, let's start with a few coding slides. And the primary object that keeps all possible values of hyperparameters is the ParamGrid object. On this slide, you could see the pipeline object that ties all preprocessing stages here, vectorizing, imputing of missing values, min-max scalar, and final trainer like decision tree. After that, ParamGrid encapsulates the logic of adding of two hyperparameters like max dip and mean impurity decrease for their decision tree classification trainer if you want to inject two hyperparameters here. And after the ParamGrid object is created, this object ParamGrid could be passed to the cross-validation object via the special method which named the ParamGrid method. On the next slide, you will see it. On this slide, we combine together our pipeline, our data, Ignite instance, hyperparameters in ParamGrid, and we could call the method tune hyperparameters to get the best model. It sounds crazy, but this method solves a lot of your problems. And maybe you missed, but in the previous slide, I used special parameter search strategy, new evolution optimization strategy. This is a kind of genetic algorithms, and we discuss it in a few minutes. Let's discuss how to define hyperparameter search space X. Firstly, we'll consider the basic HPO technique, grid search or brute force. It could be known on both names. And this approach, main idea is to run ML pipeline with all possible combinations of parameters to get the final metric scores. For example, if you have two parameters and each of them has two different values, you will run four different training runs. For example, if you have two hyperparameters with 10 variants, 10 multiply 10, it gives us 100 training runs. If we increase the number of hyperparameters from 2 to 5, keeping 10 variants for each, 10 multiply 10, multiple 10, multiple 10, multiple 10, 100 of 1,000 training runs are completed. Doesn't believe in that. And I suppose that nobody would wait long enough for 100,000 training runs to finish. I think nobody have money to run it in Amazon, etc. And of course, grid search works well only on a small number of hyperparameters and a very, very small range of values for each of them. When I run hyperparameter tuning for scikit-learn models for random search or brute force cases, I often wrote a handmade parallelization to run a portion of training with parallelization. Why I told about parallelization? Because I tried a lot of many years how to reduce the CPU time, how to increase and speed up my brute force search. And the parallelization was the first idea how to speed up it. Another alternative method was the second idea. Let's discuss parallelization. For example, I was confused that a library such as HyperOpt, this is a most popular library for hyperparameter tuning, uses Apache Spark or MongoDB to run parallel training and does not have built-in parallelization without, I don't know, different JVM executors. And running external JVM executors to start parallel execution is too much for me, for example. And this is the reason why I started to development of our own sub-library for Apache Ignite ML project for hyperparameter tuning too. A brute force search of all possible combinations where each training runs independently can be easily parallelized without synchronization barriers. For example, in Apache Ignite ML, to run the parallel versions very easy. You need to change parallelism strategy, change it from no parallelism to on default PAL. In Learning Environment Builder, this is a cross-validation parameter, and it works. No specific parallel code. You know, it's very hard to write parallel code in Java. You should think about different synchronizer, etc. And imagine that we have a data set in Ignite's cache, and we need to run dozens of training runs simultaneously. After we call the tune hyperparameters method for search by brute force, the following steps are performed. First of all, cross-validation objects generates all possible combinations of parameters. Okay, we have all possible combinations. After that, the cross-validation object create a sequence of tasks internally. Of course, you don't know, you didn't see it in the user code, but if you go deeper under the hood, you will see this code. I need to explain how it works. Tasks are submitted to the internal thread pool, the one main thread by default, and each task is executed independently because this is brute force, and each result is posted to the specific shared thread safe cross-validation result object, and you could get access to all of the results and do what you want with them. I don't know, to plot the line on the scatter plot, etc. Inside each task, all parameters are injected into appropriate place of the ML pipeline, and each task constructs a new instance of the cache-based dataset. You should think about that you have one cache, but for each task, the partition-based dataset with vectors is created independently. Part of them will be garbage collected before, because all of them located in heap memory before all execution will finish, but part of them will be like concurrents in the heap memory, and sometimes the heap memory could be not enough, and you could get specific situations with that. And every partition of the, as I said, in the cache-based dataset, you could face with different names of that, and documentation names it named like partition-based dataset, and we have a few implementation, one other SQL tables, one other caches, and the popular one is the cache-based dataset. You could find information about it in the Ignite ML documentation. So this is how grid search works. And the performance, as I said, of grid search quickly degrades. Then it searches the best hyperparameters values in the space of dimensions higher than 3, maybe 2, if you have very wide range of discrete values. And the random search is supported too. This is an alternative approach which reduces the number of training runs. How it works? The Ignite ML random search implementation makes random jumps and trials on the discrete grid, which was generated like in the grid search or like in the ParamGrid, to ensure no more than a set number of attempts. For example, if you set only 10 trials, it will make only 10 jumps, and it will run only 10 training runs. Instead of, for example, 100,000. Of course, the resulting model and the best hyperparameters in many cases will not the real best hyperparameters, but they could be good enough. And you could control this parameter. You could decide how many cluster resource could be utilized for hyperparameter tuning. You could increase these values you had enough memory, if you have enough memory or CPU time. And also random search supports parallelization. It's Ignite user in the same manner could enable it via changing parallelism strategy, as I said. This is documented too. And I will, if we will have enough time, I will share my idea and present some code with parallel tuning. So then we compare ML algorithm that are configured by grid search or by random search. We could find that the random search over the same domain can find models that are as good or better in many cases, according theory of probabilities, and use a small fraction of the computation time or cluster resources that a grid search requires. And this is very good thing. This is high probability that we can get, like in this slide, we can get into the area of good solution in a small number of tries, but grid search will go and go and go and go and spend a lot of time and resources before it will walk to the yellow area of optimal solutions, for example, into 2D case. So in reality, if you visualize the landscape of optimization problem, for example, for hyperparameter tunings and for many other optimization tasks in neural networks and ML, you could find that parameter space has a high rank. On this slide, it's only 3, but in reality, it could have very high rank, like 10 or 20. And the searching surface looks like a pile of dirty clothes in laundry basket. And as a result, the standard methods of convex or non-convex optimization do not apply at searching for global or local optima. And this is a real problem for hyperparameter optimization. And this is the reason why firstly we implemented not Bayesian algorithms, not gradient search, because it doesn't work well on such kind of landscapes for such kind of optimization problem, and we prefer genetic algorithms or evolutionary optimization. Maybe you familiar with that. If no, I will remind us a few terms about that. Genetic algorithms, also known as evolutionary optimization, they apply natural selection mechanism to solve the optimization problem. Strange, genetic algorithms helps us to solve the optimization problem with equations, but it works, and it works really well. Ignite ML uses the genetic algorithm to tune hyperparameters. And in many cases, the HPO, hyperparameter optimization task, could be formulated as tasks of discrete optimization. And for example, I was studied on the Cathedra of Theory of Optimization at my university, and it was very popular method, and it beats a lot of different approaches, and it really works well in discrete optimization, like the space of hyperparameters. For example, we could decide that the searching of best DNA of best genes remind us the searching of best set of hyperparameters. It uses specific genetic operators like selection, evaluation, crossover, mutation, and many others to the population produced as a bunch of different hyperparameter set. We treat hyperparameters like genes of individuals all in the genetic population. In brief, the adoption of genetic algorithms to solve the HPO problems includes the following steps. First of all, the genetic algorithm generates an initial population. In our case, this is a fixed set of hyperparameters, with each hyperparameter set representing an individual in the in the population. After that, the genetic algorithms evaluates the initial population. It runs trainings and gets the value of the metric, and it treats like a value of fitness function. And here, the calculation of fitness function is equal to calculation of metric on the training data set here. Also, we could apply a specific selection strategy. We implemented the most popular one, roulette wheel selection. For example, the genetic algorithm selects the best individuals from the initial population to become the parents of a new generation. After that, the genetic algorithms create the new generation. In our case, this is a new sets of hyperparameters. But how? To produce a new members of the population, it randomly selects two parents from the previous generation, combines genes of them. In our case, combines values of hyperparameters to keep good solutions. According to choosing crossover strategy, we support four different crossover strategy. This is approach how to exchange genes of two individuals. With user-defined mutation probability, the mutation operator randomly. This is like sun radiation on our hyperparameters acts. A few of the chromosomes or genes of each newly generated child, and the mutation operator change the chromosomes to valid values, only valid, not randomly outside of our range, from the search space. And the genetic algorithm at the end evaluates the new generation that includes the newly generated children. And these previous steps are repeated until the maximum number of generations is reached. For example, we set up 10, only 10 generations will be produced. It defined the real, the higher estimation of training runs which could be executed. Or we could have another condition for convergence. For example, our fitness function are not changed from generation to generation. This is another stop criteria. And let's take a look at a few individuals in the initial population. For example, here, they were generated randomly, like here. Each column or individual contains 4 number of genes. Suppose that the selection operator selects first and third individual as parents. The parents here produce 2 children via one-point crossover, and after that mutation operator changed the gene in the first individual. As a result, 2 children are added to the new generation population. Also, we implemented specific improvement of genetic algorithms, widely known as elitism strategy. We could take the best individual. In our case, this is the best set of hyperparameters from the previous generation, to copy, to take it to the next generation, because, for example, it was better than all generated childs, and we don't want to lose the best solution from the previous generation. This is a kind of elitist selection. This strategy guarantees that the quality of the genetic algorithm solution does not decrease from one generation to the next. If we will ignore the elitist strategy, for example, we could set the number of elita to the 0, and we will ignore that. We will not guarantee that our our metric score does not decrease from one generation to another, and as a result, we could get very bad solution. Let's go to the examples. I think we have 5 minutes for demo. This is official. It will be 2 examples from the official tutorial, which could be found in examples ML tutorial folder. Give me a second to switch between slides and idea. Hope. Okay, I see. In audience view that you see my working space. Okay, give a second. This is an example where we load data from the Titanic data set and want to build a model, a very good model, which will predict will survive passenger or not based on different features like P-class, CBSP, Parch, Sexenberg, H, Fair. We create vectors, define a train test splitter. I will run our example to get the result, because it will take time. After that, we define preprocessor to encode text features, inputting preprocessor to impute missing values. We have missing values here on min-max scaler preprocessor normalization, preprocessor to normalize and scale features to build the best model, and define the trainer. Trainer decision tree classification trainer. This is very important. We will build, I prefer trees in this task of classification of passengers on the Titanic dataset. And now we start our tuning hyperparameters code. We define the main object, the cross-validation. We defined the ParamGrid, as I said. Here we use brute force strategy. It means that 1,000 training runs will be executed lower, and we will see it in the debug. We add 3 hyperparameters, 2 of them related to their decision tree classification trainer. One of them, this is a P norm for normalization trainer. It trains 2. We want to choose different norms, and maybe we'll be successful with alternative to 1 or 2. They are the most popular. So we need to combine them in the setter methods, ignite, data cache. Here we will run it in the parallel. You could see the name of the example, parallel brute force search. And we pass the specific learning environment builder. Here we set up the parallelism strategy type dependency. Parallelism strategy now supports only 2 values on default pool and no parallelism. We switch on one default pool, and it will be run in parallel on all available CPUs. I think that in future we will add more operators, more strategies here. For example, with running on the limited number of CPU cores, but now it works like is presented. So it uses accuracy metric to estimate on the each fault, and the training set is split on the 3 faults each time. A lot of different trainings are run. It close to 3,000, in reality 3,000 under the hood. And we call the tune hyperparameters method, and we get the cross-validation result. And we could get the best values of these hyperparameters and rerun the trainer with the best values. For example, to train on the whole data set, on another data, what you want. And we print out the best score, the best hyperparameters, the best average score, and evaluate the best model. Okay, let's go to the log to see that we really run 1,000 training runs, and the best hyperparameter were P is equal to 10, max deep is equal to 3, and mean impurity decrease is equal 0.8. Okay, it's good enough. We have accuracy, it's close to, okay, 1,000 runs, sorry for that. This is a printed model. This is decision tree printed model. The accuracy is enough good to 0.78. Okay, that's enough. Let's try to reduce the amount of trainings, and let's use the parallel genetic programming approach on the next tab. Here, the same code, it has only different one string, one row here. In ParamGrid, we set up evolution optimization strategy instead brute force. And it acts the same way. We set up the parallelism strategy here, and under the hood, it runs genetic algorithms, and let's run it in parallel. It will take less time, 10 times. It will extend 10 times faster. I think we need some time to run 100 of trainings instead of 1,000. Also, evolution optimization strategy has a few different settings too. For example, number of elite chromosomes, number of generations, crossing over probability, mutation probability, different crossover and selection strategy. You have a very big freedom how to run evolutional optimization in our case, and you could experiment and play in a sandbox that the best are the best set of parameters for this strategy. Don't use only default, try to experiment with different, but okay, the training is finished 10 times faster. We have more lower accuracy, of course, because we don't brute force all possible cases, but we could see that accuracy is close. We lost only 3% in our accuracy on the small data set, and we have best hyperparameters close to the previous. P is equal 10 to mean purity decrease close to the previous, but max deep is lower. It's only 1. It's very, very, very little, very little tree, and it works very good in our case. It uses a special feature to predict correctly. Cool. Okay, the demo is finished. I think I need a second to switch between sharings. So I hope you see my slides. Okay, and we could go to the last chapter. But before, of course, there is much work here for Ignite ML contributors, addition of optimization methods such as Bayesian optimization or gradient-based optimization, improvements such as early stopping logic, which is based on condition and could be implemented via callbacks. All of them on the roadmap. I think that 3.0 version will be shipped with all of them on board, but existing methods already can significantly reduce the number of training runs and the amount of burned CPU time and occupied memory side. Also, we have one feature which was not covered. We will spend not very big number of time here. We'll talk about ensemble learning methods. Ensemble learning builds a set of classifiers in order to enhance the accuracy of a single classifier. Ensemble methods are meta algorithms that combine several machine learning techniques into one predictive model in order to decrease, for example, variance, it's a Bayesian method, bias, it's a boosting method, or improve predictions. This is a stacking. Let's look at one of them, bagging, first of all. Bootstrap aggregation, also known like bagging, is a machine learning ensemble meta algorithm designed to improve the stability and accuracy of machine learning algorithms. It also reduces variance. It helps to avoid overfitting. For example, you have a standard training data set of size n, and bagging generates m new training subsets, each of very little size, by sampling from D uniformly and with replacements. And then M models are fitted using the M bootstrap samples and combined by averaging the output for regression, for example, or voting for classification case, and each training is distributed and all trainings could be run in parallel. Another technique is boosting. This is a machine learning ensemble, another meta algorithm. It's primarily used for reducing bias and also variance sometimes. And the idea of boosting is another, not train M models in parallel. Let's improve our weak, it's now known like weak learners. It means that you could train first logistic regression, use it to train the second logistic regression or linear regression, and build them, combine them into the strong, good model which evaluates perfectly. The idea of boosting is to train weak learners, as I said, sequentially, and each training is distributed, but as a result, the models couldn't be trained in parallel. And each of these models in sequence, trying to correct the previous models. How it works, for example, let's look on the gradient boosted trees like here. Gradient boosted trees, an ensemble of decision trees. You could build different ensembles, but this is ensemble of decision trees. In the most common version of the algorithm, in each iteration we add a tree, like on this slide. And each iteration, when a new tree is added, which is trained on labels, please attention, that result from only errors made by the existing ensemble of trees. It means that it's trying to classify only wrong labels. It learns only on errors. It's very interesting example how the AI and machine learning acts. The final point of the presentation is stacking, as I said. Stacking involves training a learning algorithm to combine the predictions of several other learning algorithms. It gives us ability to build complex architecture of a sequence of different models. It's very popular, for example, in Kaggle to win the competitions. First of all of our algorithms are trained using the available data. For example, you train 3 or 4 decision trees. Then a combiner algorithm here, this is logistic regression, is trained to make a final prediction using predictions from the low level, from the decision trees. It learned on the predictions. I want to add one note about possible parallelization. Of course, all trainings on the low level, I mean 3 or 4, like here, 3 decision trees could be run in parallel, but of course, the final level, for example, logistic regression here couldn't be running in parallel with previous models. It should wait the result from the previous layer to be executed. So the code is very simple. Here you define the 2 trainers, for example, with different hyperparameters, with different max deep, and aggregator like logistic regression trainer, which will be a trainer on the second level. And we could combine all of them, put 2 first trainers to the stacked vector dataset trainer, and await the result from the aggregator. We have the same example in the tutorial too. You could train or run stacking model, for example, in the Titanic tutorial or on another dataset which are shipped with Ignite ML in supported datasets. But that's all. I hope, dear attendee, that you now have an idea of how hyperparameter optimization works in Ignite ML. In this presentation, we will step by step through hyperparameter optimization in Apache Ignite ML, as I said, and existing model methods can significantly reduce the number of training runs, of course, and the amount of burned CPU time and occupied memory size. Ensemble method, this is another approach which can significantly improve quality of your model and could be parallelized too. And you could combine both of them in the really pretty cool training. You could train and validate and tune hyperparameters of very complex models here, and all of our execution will be distributed and parallelized where it is possible. Okay, that's all. Follow me on Twitter, Medium. I'm going to publish a few articles about HPO topic, about different topics from Ignite ML on GitHub, on YouTube. There are a few English videos there. And if you have any question or suggestions about Ignite ML, feel free to contact me via this email. Okay, if you have any suggestion of HPO, don't hesitate to contact me too. Thank you. Thank you.